Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. For today's demonstration I want to show one of the many alternatives to the rule of thirds for composition. This quick preparatory sketch of wheeling seagulls over crashing waves is based on intersecting diagonals to create dynamism and movement in the painting. The positioning of the gulls and the shape of the waves are designed to take the viewer's eye around the painting and prevent it from being too static an image. So let me show you how I painted this. I've loosely sketched a few guidelines for where the waves are going to be, and I've positioned the gulls where I want them on this 11" by 7" sheet of Saunders Waterford 300g rough paper. I'm starting with Prussian blue with a tiny touch of sap green for the first wash of the sea, and I'm working on dry paper so that I can control where I want to retain the white of the paper. If I had wet the paper first, it would have been difficult to control the pigment bleeding into the white areas. And as I paint, I'm just dabbing with a damp clean brush at the edges to soften them, or I'm using some clean white paper towel just to take off some of the pigment, and it just softens the edges. And I'll be doing this throughout the painting. I'll put some pigment on and then dab it off with the paper towel. It just softens the edges and takes a little bit of the pigment out, and you can build up layers this way to get the darker areas where you want them and get them to the level that you want. Just added a touch more sap green to the mix here, and just for some of the darker areas, building it wet in wet as I go along. The thing about painting the sea is it really is a mixture of all different shades of whichever colour you're using, and just add a little bit of green here and there and a bit more blue, darken some of the areas, just trying to indicate some waveforms, keeping it very loose. When you paint the sea, it can be any shade of blue, green, grey, or any combination, depending on what sort of day you want to depict. My aim for this sketch is a bright day because I just want it to be a nice bright image to contrast with the seagulls, hence the bluey green colour of the sea. As I add some more darker tones, I'll also lift out with the paper towel just to soften those edges, gradually building up the image of movement, of splashing waves and foam. This is a preliminary sketch for a more finished work that I'll be doing in the future. I just want to get the layout the way I want it. Okay, so I've let this dry, and I'm now adding much darker mix of the Prussian blue with a touch of sap green, just for the darker areas, gradually building up the darks as I go along. Making sure I leave some lighter areas and some of the white of the paper on those waves that are a little bit further away. I'm just adding dark for the shading under where the wave is just breaking in the wave nearest us. This is a key feature of the painting or the sketch, and the idea is it takes the eye to the centre where the nearest seagull is going to be once I paint it. And at this stage of the painting, it starts to come together as I add more darks and create depth in the painting. Just added some more sap green just to vary the tonal values. It just brings the wave alive with a variety of colours. If it was all one colour, it would be fairly flat and boring. So bear that in mind when you are painting waves or anything like this, really. Don't be frightened to change the colour a little bit. If you have a look at the sea, it's never one single colour, it's always a changing variety of colours. Just added some ultramarine to the mix there, just to give it a little bit more blue for the darker areas of that foreground wave. As I said earlier, as I add these darker patches, it creates a little bit more volume to the waves. I've just got a rigger now with some white gouache just to add some detail on the edge of the wave and in the foaming sea. Just picking up the tooth of the paper using the side of the brush. The trick is not to go over the top of this. I've mentioned this before, if you're using white gouache and it dries a little bit flat and not quite as bright as you want it, let it dry fully and then go over again with some more gouache, and you'll find it'll dry much whiter and brighter. But I'm not a great advocate of using too much unless I'm painting the sea, in which case I tend to use a fair bit, but I try and avoid using it in other paintings. But it's ideal for the sea. I'm just painting the seagulls here in a sort of neutral bluey grey as an underpainting for them, just to locate them. And once that's dry, I will add some black patches for the wingtips and the bodies, and some more white, just to help define the birds. As I said at the beginning, this is just a preparatory sketch, so I'm not too fussed if the birds aren't perfect. It's just to allow me to see if I've got the positioning right for when I do a more finished piece. Just adding some white and black patches here and there just to break the birds up a little bit. I may have to revisit them and darken a few areas so that they stand out against the sea. Now that the painting's more or less finished and the goals are nearly finished, I've been looking at it and I'm not happy with the foreground wave, so I'm just going to make some changes to that. And I've just added a little bit more white under that initial the seagull nearest to us. It just brings it alive more and it makes the wave look a bit more realistic to me. So I think I'm pretty much done now. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. Please give it a like if you did, Do subscribe and hit the notification bell if you're not already subscribed, and thanks again for watching.